in Joseph's new tomb, where he stayed for 3 days as he prophesied. However, on the first day of the week, he rose from the dead and walked from the tomb, despite the fact that a huge stone blocked the doorway. And the absence of his body from the tomb sent shockwaves through the religious leadership. For it was their greatest fear that another person would be seen living after having been reported dead.
All right.
Because you already do remember that the death of Lazarus, don't you? His death and him getting up caused them some problems. Come on, help me somebody. For Jesus raised him from the dead. And they knew that it would only increase Jesus' follower if he got up. And so they were disturbed that they were so disturbed that they attempted, you know what, look how bad these folk were. They were so afraid and so nerved up and disturbed that they attempted to kill Lazarus again. Come on here, help me somebody. To stop the groundswell of support that Jesus was getting. Now, them some haters, ain't they?
Some serious haters.
Lord have mercy, them some haters. And you Bible readers know that a little girl had been raised too. Isn't that right?
That's right.
And that sparked great interest. And so they took great pains that Jesus' followers would not be encouraged by the disappearance of his body and a claim to his own resurrection from the grave. And so they insisted that the large stone that would block the doorway of the tomb would bear the official Roman seal to keep anybody from removing his body and claiming that he had risen. And in addition, for the course of 3 days that he had predicted, they insisted upon guards being on the tomb. Isn't that right, Maurice?
Amen.
And you know some of y'all, it must have seemed really ridiculous to them soldiers with all of their other duties performed that they were being called upon to guard a tomb from people who were so frightened that they had hid in the crowd, stayed back in the distance to avoid association. It must have been humorous to them to stand watch over a tomb cut out from a rock, protected by a rock, and sealed with the Roman official seal. Yet, that's what they had to do. And when an angel appeared, y'all, and rolled the stone away, the soldiers were all amazed. And when they reported what they saw to the religious leaders, they were given huge amount of money to tell the story another way. It's in your Bible. We read it a while ago, y'all. Look what they told. They said they wanted it to appear that the disciples had stolen the body, but they would conjure any reasonable fabrication if necessary, but they were not to tell the truth. My friends, here was a large amount of money given to the soldiers for keeping quiet on what they knew to be a lie. Lord, have mercy, Jesus. And the priests promised to protect them from the sword of Pilate because their lives would be in danger, but they did not consider that while they had influence with Pilate, their bad deed would get nowhere before the sword and of God's judgments. Isn't that right, somebody? And so they gave them a story to tell, but it was one that was riddled with many, many inconsistencies. For had the soldiers been all asleep, they could not have known what transpired. Or if any had been awake, they would have roused the others and prevented the removal. And certainly, if they had been asleep, they never would have dared to confess it, because Pilate would have had them killed. Can I get a witness? And again, had there been any truth in the report, the rulers would have